Well, I have to say, this is not a very happy message today. OMG. But before we get into it, I want to start with the second reading, because this actually gives a kind of a linkage to everything today. Paul writes in his first letter to the Corinthians about Adam, the first Adam, and Christ, who he calls the second Adam. And the first Adam, he said, came out of the earth and was made of earthly stuff. The second Adam was from the heavens. And he compares these two, and he tells us that the second Adam, who is out of the heavens, will bring to us heavenly things, bring to us a heavenly image. So that, I think, connects both the first reading, which is kind of an application of the cross, but hundreds of years before, at least 700 years before Christ came. And David is doing what Jesus would do on the cross. But before we get to it, when I was a kid and grew up back in the 50s, oh God, I can't believe I said that, but it's true. If somebody punched me and I came home and cried about it or said something, you know what my dad would say to me? Did you punch him back? And I said, no. He said, well, don't ever do that again. If somebody punches you, don't punch him back. Don't come home, because I'll punch you. Did anybody else ever hear that message? Pay him back. Get him back. Kick him. So not the gospel. My mother wouldn't say that, but my dad said it. And I think most fathers I knew, and some mothers were just as tough. Punch them right back. Don't be afraid of them. Don't let them take the better of you. But Jesus says just the opposite. And it's interesting because the first reading from the book of Samuel, Saul is king. And David has fallen out of favor with Saul because Saul loved David very much, like his own son. But Saul began to hate David, probably most of all out of jealousy. That seemed to be the core beginning of all the sins. And so he took 3,000 men as an army to go out and search for Saul, to kill kill David. That was the plan. So they holed up in the cave for the night to sleep and get their strength back and all, etc. And David and his servant, Abishai, come upon them in the cave, and they see Saul sleeping there, and they're very quiet. And Abishai says, should I take his spear and with one thrust of the spear kill him? And David said, no, don't touch him. But instead they took the spear and the water that was nearby, left the cave, and were some distance away. And then when the cave and Saul and all of his army began to wake up, he sees his spear missing. Not a good sign. Not a good sign. So David calls across and says, here's your spear. Could have killed you, but I showed you mercy. So today, know that God's mercy here touched your life. And Abishai admitted they could have killed him and he wanted to kill him, but he said, no. You can't touch the anointed of God. Because if you take the anointed king that God himself anointed and do any harm to him, harm will come to you. So he called out to Saul and told him, you're ready to kill me. You were searching after me to kill me, but I forgive you, and I only want the best for you. I leave you in peace. Now that's the message of the cross. But really, is that real? I mean, I know it's real, but it's so difficult. And I think that the real reaction, we know the words, we've heard the words, and we can say, oh, Jesus was so divine on that cross to say, Father, forgive them all, they know not what they do. But really, could we do that? Would we want to do? If we were hanging on that cross and people spit on us and slapped us and insulted us and now had nails through our hands and feet and we were dying on that cross, would we pray for them and bless them? And Jesus is really explicit in this gospel. He doesn't mince any words. Love your enemies. Do good to them. Lend expecting nothing back. He says, pray for those who mistreat you. Bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you. Love your enemies. Now, I like to say he doesn't say like your enemies. I think without exception, I'll bet you that anybody over the age of 12 in this church today could honestly say this: I don't like, and then a name could go there. Could sometimes be their own brother or sister, I don't like them. But loving and liking are different. I like to say that liking means I'd like to go out to pizza with them. But if I don't like somebody, I don't want to have pizza with them. But I can still love them, do good for them and to them, and want good for them and pray for them. And Jesus is focusing on something that is so essential if we want to have good hearts, good souls, good lives. Today, Jesus is inviting us to not live with hatred in our hearts. Years ago, I walked out into the office in the rectory I was living in, and there was a woman there. It was about 1 p.m, and she was obviously bothered. You can tell sometimes you just look at somebody's face and they've got this scowl. So I said to her, "Are you okay? Looks like you may have had a rough morning." She says, "I did, Father." I said, "Well, what happened?" She said this: "I went to the bank, and this person walked right in front of me without saying, 'Excuse me.' And it ruined her whole day." It was 1 o'clock, and I said, "Well, what time did that happen?" "At 10 o'clock this morning, right when the bank opened." And she was still miserable. And I thought, oh, really? How long are you going to carry that? All day? Tomorrow? For a week? A month? Now, I've sat in the confessional, and I've heard people who were offended by somebody's words years ago and still can't forgive them. And I'm not knocking anybody. If there's anybody in the church right now who's there, I've been there. I've never forgiven some people. More so years ago. I think I've grown, but, I think that's pretty natural. This isn't natural after all that happened to him to say, "Father, forgive them all, they know not what they do." That's divine. That came straight from God, if you ask me. God's love filled Jesus' heart, and he couldn't hold it all in there. He had to speak it out loud. And I wonder if somebody just right before Jesus said that spit on Jesus again, how they would have felt when they heard those words, "Father, forgive them all. They know not what they do." Ooh, how sheepish they might feel. But today I think Jesus is rescuing us as the new Adam, the spiritual Adam, rescuing us from that inner hatred and anger. When someone hurts us, hurt turns rather quickly to anger. And when we feel anger again and again and again and again, we call it resentment, resentimiento. Feel it again. Feel it again. And sometimes we can multiply that for years. We keep feeling that ugliness. And Jesus says, but you know what? It doesn't have to be that way. You can be free from that. You can free yourself from that. All you have to do is forgive. So, if today we hear this message, and some of us might be real honest and say, "Jesus, thank you for your message. I'm glad you could do it, but I can't. I don't want to do it. I won't do it. I'm sorry. I'll follow all your other commands, but I'll love people, but love my enemy? I don't think so. Can't do it." Maybe some would be super honest that way and say it right to Jesus, right to his face. And I say to get there, if we ever get there, it doesn't have to be with every person that has hurt us or every enemy that we have. I don't think that's natural. I don't think it's normal. I think it's super amazing if we can do it. So I want to suggest to you to get to the point where I say to you, Jesus, with all my heart, I love what you said, and I want to do it, and I will do it. Thank you. It's a gift. But to get there, you might say this: I don't want to yet, but I want to. I want to, but I don't want to yet. And if we could pray out of that, I want to, I want someday to want that enough that I will actually do it, at least some of the time, at least here and there. It doesn't have to be perfection. I do it every single time. But little by little by little, that message transforms me. And if I can look at that cross and gain from that cross the glory, the power, the grace, the blessing that Jesus offers, how blessed indeed we will be.